Wi-Fi Sheep would like to say a huge thank you to all of you that kindly support us. Help us continue to bring new videos like this. Join patreon.com/Wi-Fi Sheep from just $1 a month. Hello everyone, how you doing, and welcome back to yet another Wi-Fi Sheep tech video with me, Tom. And we're continuing our look at the brand new Raspberry Pi Zero2W. Now, to bring you up to speed, the 2W is a brand new, small, compact Raspberry Pi released by the Pi Foundation roughly 4 days ago now in the dying embers of October 2021. Today is the 2nd of November, so we're about 4 days in. Now, I've already done an initial news video, I've done a full review video of the product, but one of the things that came out of that video was, could this run with RetroPie? Now, I'm going to be totally honest with you, I think the use case for this device is most likely going to be handheld arcade and retro console emulation. And for that point, you do need a small board. Most people that have been building sort of Game Boy clone type things have been using the original Raspberry Pi Zero, which was fine, but you do hit an upper limit of what it can run, which is roughly the kind of 16-bit SNES era stuff. Anything more than that, such as PlayStation or particularly N64, the board struggles massively. But if you remember the video last time, I tried putting the Raspberry Pi 4 version that I happen to have on SD card into the new Pi Zero, and it booted and then crashed quite spectacularly. Now, that wasn't a fair test because it wasn't even the correct version. So therefore, let's revisit. I'm going to flash a new version of RetroPie 1 specifically for the Raspberry Pi 2 and 3. And I'm going to use it from the official Raspberry Pi image burner that you can get for Windows, Mac and Linux. However, interestingly, the build dates for the current version of RetroPie are from mid last year. So, how well do these work? Well, that's what we're going to find out today. However, before we continue, do you have a need for reliable and cost-effective web hosting for your blog, business or personal website? If so, then look no further than CheapHost UK. CheapHost UK's basic plan starts from only 58p per month. That's £6.99 a year. And if you're in need of a little bit more, CheapHost UK's premium packages start from just £1.41 a month. That's £16.99 a year, complete with a free .co.uk domain name. New customers can also take advantage of an extra 10% discount when purchasing any first-time hosting package or domain name from CheapHost UK. Use discount code SHEEP, that's SHEEP, to get an extra 10% off. For reliable, cost-effective web hosting and domain names, look no further than CheapHost UK. Full details and affiliate link are in the description to this video. So for all the games I'm going to show you today, I do actually have real legal physical copies. Now, we're not going to actually use the media itself, but we are going to use the licenses in order to run copies of these games on the emulator. And just on another factor in relation to copyright, we are, if we get the emulator running, going to have a look at some of these games actually running on the Raspberry Pi Zero. Now, these games are intellectual property and they are copyrighted, but under US law there is this very vague fair use claim that you can make for using small amounts of content in relation to an expanded work or video. Now, fair use doesn't apply here in the United Kingdom. But under English law, we do have something very similar, which allows you to use small amounts of sampled copyrighted material within what we call a derivative work in order to, for purposes of, let's say, a review or education or a technical demonstration, which basically we're actually all three of those things. So as long as you're not basically completely ripping something off or sharing illegally media, we should be covered in all bases, both here in the UK and also in the United States, where I believe this video actually gets hosted on the YouTube server. So with that bit cleared up, let's get into it and see if we can get RetroPie running on the brand new Raspberry Pi Zero2W. So let's see how well, or if at all, this is going to boot up. Okay, so we've got a rainbow boot screen. And there's the splash screen. So we got to the front kernel and the splash screen. And that to me looks like a kernel panic. Yeah, that ain't looking good. That's kind of similar to what we saw before. Okay, so yeah, this doesn't seem to work, which is unfortunate. So yeah, is that broken? Is it properly broken? Yeah, it's not looking good. It shouldn't be doing that anyway. You shouldn't be seeing this hex on the screen. So yeah, it looks like it has kernel panicked. So what we're going to do then is we'll just power off. That may have corrupted the SD card. We may need to reflash again, but let's just see. So if it doesn't work currently on the new RetroPie 02 hardware, what if we tried a RetroPie 3? And of course, I'm sure if you're like me, you've been collecting all these Pi boards, you've now got lots of surplus boards lying around. So this is the 1.2 version of the 3, so it's the one that had the metal revised heat-sinked process, and I put an additional heatsink on top on this board. So let's swap some parts over. Okay, let's power back on and let's see if this is any better. Okay, yes, that is looking a bit better. So it first of all wants to try and detect a gamepad or a game controller. I haven't got one installed, so let's just hit F4. So we haven't broken the card, we just know it's not at the moment compatible. And again, I said in the introduction, the RetroPie images are actually older from last year now. They've not been updated, and obviously things have changed. So clearly RetroPie at the moment is not straight compatible with the brand new Raspberry Pi 2W. However, if we were to connect this to the internet, I wonder if we could actually do a sudo update and update the distro, and then see if we could put it back into the new Pi Zero. Let's try that. So in order to attempt to update the OS, bearing in mind that RetroPie uses the Raspberry and Raspberry Pi OS as its base, so it should be able to be updated quite easily. But to do that, we're going to need an internet connection. I could use Wi-Fi on these, but I haven't configured it. So I'm actually just going to plug an Ethernet lead and get that the right way around. Okay, so Ethernet lead is in, and now making sure we're at the terminal screen, we can ask for an update. So let's try sudo apt update. And it says, do we want to make changes? So we say yes. And you can see it's looking at the raspbian.raspberry.org repository in order to get hold of the required files. So this is a stock Raspbian Raspberry Pi OS underneath. So it should be possible to manually update it like this. So once we've done that, we can say sudo apt full upgrade. And again, we'll say yes, there's quite a lot to be upgraded, so this might take a little while. Okay, so this is now the unpacking and installing of the update. So the first part was the download, and now we can see with progress at 0%, we're now going to attempt to update and install new packages. This will take some time, so what we'll do is we're going to do a jump cut, and we'll come back when this is finished. And for the miracle of modern editing, you've not had to sit through that. That process took over an hour to do. But now we're updated. Final thing I think we need to do is we'll just do a cleanup. So we say sudo apt and then clean. Okay, and we'll go sudo reboot. Oops, I misspelled that. There we go. So far so good. Back to the splash screen. So it hasn't broken it so far. Okay, yeah, that's gone into the Linux kernel, so we're doing all right. Okay, so we'll hit F4. That's the prompt. So we can now try shutting this down. So just make sure we take power off at the mains and let's unplug. Make sure to take the SD card out. So welcome back to brand new Raspberry Pi Zero 2. Put the SD card now back into this. Don't need the network cable. Put our adapter back on for HDMI. HDMI cable back in. Power back in. And we're using a hub. Let's see what happens now if we attempt to do a new boot. So far looking promising. We got that far before. Okay, that's looking good. There we are, emulation station is loaded, and there we go. Okay, so what I've got is, I've got one of these cheap clone SNES USB controllers, and I'm just going to plug that into the hub, which you won't be able to see because it's off camera, and hold down A, USB gamepad, there we go. So now it wants you to set up the gamepad, so D-pad up, down, left, right, start, select, and there we go, we're in. Of course, we haven't actually got any games loaded, so what I'm going to do is put a few ROMs onto this so we can test a few things out. Okay, so I've added a couple of ROMs to the system. Now, I had an issue. I was trying to use the USB hub and it kept detecting a USB fault. Don't know what the issue is, so I ended up having to attach network cable to the end. I could have configured the Wi-Fi, but I decided just to connect to the Ethernet on the end of this hub. And I then used, from a Mac, I uploaded the ROMs to RetroPie. Let's just start with Nintendo Entertainment System. And we should have Super Mario Bros. 3. And I don't expect this to have any real problems. I'm terrible at playing it, but yeah, that seems absolutely fine. So we can return. Now then, let's go through to Nintendo 64. This is where normally the Raspberry Pi Zero would start falling down. Let's see how it is if we try Super Mario 64.
It's me, Mario. Hello. Okie dokie.
Now the trick will be, what is the frame rate like? Okay. It's not bad. It's a little jerky, but certainly playable. If you were playing this on a small screen, or like an LCD in a handheld, like one of those sort of hybrid Pi Game Boy type things. And of course, we're not saying that every game is going to work properly, because N64 emulation is difficult to say the least, but it's possibly a little bit slow. But yeah, that's not bad, and you could probably get a little bit more performance out of this if you needed it. Let's go back to menu. So let's just try F1 World Grand Prix. I've used this on the channel before. It's a personal favourite, and it's one of those overlooked games on the system that, press the right button, that it's Formula One. It's not that popular in North America, so it's very much popular in Europe and Japan. But it is one of those games that goes very cheap, but I think is visually probably one of the better on the N64. So we'll see. I don't know what that means. Something to do with the emulator, but most things seem to be running okay, so... Oh no, there we go. There's a little bit of glitching. Again, this could be the emulator rather than the Pi itself. Oh yeah. Slightly struggling that. Okay, something has not gone right there. Yeah, I can tell you now that's not right. You shouldn't have all that sort of black render boxing and... Okay, so what we can do is we can pop back out the game, and if we relaunch it, and then we've got a configuration here, so we can select, let's select emulator for ROM. Let's try that again. Sometimes just switching the ROM to a different setting can be enough. That's looking better. He said the car's just disappeared. It's struggling a bit, isn't it? Again, I'm sensing there's a slight frame drop. I mean, this game was always extremely highly demanding of the N64. It does look better, possibly if you can push it in high-res mode, which this isn't. It can actually crisp up quite nicely, but N64 does look a little bit better when you haven't got the fog of either an NTSC or PAL original system. We did a video about this actually, using this game, comparing it to composite PAL out and at the time it was Raspberry 3. Emulator version. Oh, we've frozen. No, we're back. I have played this game very successfully on RetroPie before, but and it is one of the more demanding games. Okay, it's not as good as the sort of modern day Codemasters F1 license stuff, but for the time, this game was 1997, 98. There we go. Okay, I can tell you now that that has glitched. Oh, I can tell that yeah. So not quite the right settings here, because you should be seeing wheels and yeah. So it's not layering all the layers on correctly. That should be driver's view. You see this sort of the aerial sticking out the top of the car. So we're not rendering correctly. Fine there. So yeah, there's a few things that we need RetroPie, but it should be possible to get this game to run okay. And there we go, just done a lap of Albert Park, Australia. So yeah, I could probably, to be honest with you, sort of tweak this a bit, and we'd probably get slightly better results, but it's not bad at all, and I think it would be acceptable if you're putting this into a handheld type system. Well, I hope that gets you up to speed and you can have some fun now with RetroPie on your brand new Raspberry Pi Zero2W hardware. I just want to say I have really enjoyed interacting with people that have commented on the previous two videos. A lot of you really excited about the new product, and I know many of you have now gone out and bought brand new Pi Zero2Ws and are now thinking, what am I going to do with them? So I logically think most of them are going to end up being used for RetroPie, hence why I decided to make this video. If you haven't done so already, you can check me out on Twitter. It's at Wi-Fi Sheep on Twitter, and please do like and subscribe to us right here on the channel. It really does help me out a lot. Thank you so much for your company, and I hope to see you real soon. Until next time, bye for now.